the horror of genocide, repeated throughout history, became part of the collective conscience of humanity after the horrible accounts of the Nazi Germany extermination of Jews in Europe. The incomprehensible accounts of sustained terror and the relentless annihilation of innocent civilians, including men, women, and children, based on their faith and ethnicity, seemed to mark the triumph of evil over humanity. Yet, amidst the horror, there was love, honor, compassion, and courage, embodied in those that risked their own life to save as many Jews as they could. This phenomenon was not unique to the Holocaust. The film industry has immortalized stories of heroism in other genocides, such as that of Paul Rusesabagina at the Academy-nominated Hotel Rwanda, who risked his life to protect over 1,000 Tutsi and modern Hutus during the Rwanda genocide. Similarly, the award-winning film Schindler's List chronicles the efforts of Oskar Schindler to save Jewish workers from death camps. Although this recount of selfless heroism generates immediate admiration, the question remains, why did they do it? What moved these people to act at their own peril in the midst of extreme violence and in the face of human monstrosity? This essay will attempt to explore the possible answers to these questions and to draw conclusions based on stories of heroism during genocide. The scope of the analysis will be limited to stories from the Holocaust in an attempt to narrow conditions and drive potential comparisons. A brief overview of the circumstances surrounding the people that dare to stand up to the system for the sake of others will be included. Following the short historical framework, there will be a summary of stories of hope and heroism by people around Europe, with a spotlight on two non-Germans and two Germans that fought the Gestapo in Germany, Poland, and Czechoslovakia to save thousands. Finally, there will be an analysis of potential causes for their actions and a conclusion based on the research. This essay will not address well-known facts of the Nazi annihilation of their Jewish race in Europe, as the focus of the analysis are the actions and potential motivation of those who saved lives rather than those that sought to terminate lives. Winston Churchill called what Nazis were doing against Jews around Europe a crime without a name. Raphael Lemkin, a Polish Jew who escaped the Nazi machine relocating to America, answered with Churchill's statement with the conception of a name for the crime against humanity: genocide. Lemkin is a hero of genocide for his efforts to turn attention to the barbarian attacks against 6 million Jews during World War II. His greatest contribution had to be his efforts to criminalize a sovereign nation's acts against its own people, starting with giving a name to the crime against humanity. His efforts set the groundwork for future treaties on genocide, prevention, and prosecution worldwide. Still, in the case of Lemkin, the motivation to act was clear. He was a Jew who fled the Nazis. His entire immediate family, except for his brother, was killed, including 50 of his relatives. His legacy deserved recognition in an essay about genocide heroes. The question remains about all those people that were not Jews, including German nationals, that defied the slaughterers face to face, the racists. Godfrey states for non-Jews, to help Jews, even Jewish children, was to risk disaster for one's self, one's life, one's family, one's friends, and one's village. Yet people did help. As of 1997, 14,706 people had been honored as righteous persons by the Yad Vincent Holocaust Memorial Museum in Jerusalem for their efforts to save Jewish lives during the Holocaust. Their stories are the known ones, but it is estimated that thousands stayed in obscurity as a consequence of the hazardous conditions at the time of their actions. And I have to say, and many more that had died in the middle of it and never found out what their actions do. In fact, Gottfried described what Jewish rescuers would say to their people they helped. Promise me that you will never tell anyone my name. Don't even write to me. Good luck. It is important to keep on perspective the reality that most of Europe had very strong anti-Semitic sentiments before the Nazis started to implement their plans to eliminate Jews from Europe.
People shy away from genocide. Just the word seems to be so massive, and even the whole concept to be a defeat because of the huge impact and the machine, that I think when we get stuck on the definitions and all the structural type of organization around it, people shy away from it. I think if we just get back to some basics of recognizing what's wrong and just acting on it, there might be a better sense of awareness. That's my take on this question.
The stories are many, and they're encouraging to know there was that much strength and courage despite the dreadful reality. The stories are of ordinary people that acted individually or as part of organized networks from religious organizations, political opposition groups, diplomats, social workers, and even entire villages. These heroes were from Germany, Poland, and all other German-occupied territory, as well as German allied nations opposing the Nazi extermination of innocent people. They all witnessed appalling mistreatment and killings of Jewish people. They all reacted within their means and reach, from offering food, medicine, and shelter to paying bribes, falsifying identities through forged documents, and arranging escape routes for thousands. There were single individuals directly responsible for saving thousands of lives. There are 4 stories of recognized heroes of the Holocaust that will serve as anchor for the depiction of heroism from different levels but shared goals. These are the stories of Irene Sandler, a Polish social worker, Sir Nicholas Winton, a British stockbroker, Oskar Schindler, a German industrialist, and Albert Göring, the brother of Hermann Göring, the powerful Nazi leader. The first account is of social worker Irene Sandler, who grew up in Warsaw, Poland. Irene was the daughter of a doctor who had Jewish patients. Of Warsaw, Gilbert states, Warsaw was to see by far the largest destruction of Jewish life of any city in Nazi-dominated Europe. The first steps Nazi took in Warsaw was to build a wall to isolate the Jewish population in a ghetto away from what came to be known as the Aryan Warsaw. The brutality escalated rapidly, and the city government implemented the death penalty against any non-Jew helping Jews in any fashion. Being a social worker, Irene Sandler was able to enter the ghetto carrying medicine, food, and offering support. She arranged for others to collaborate, and eventually her efforts turned into a rescue operation that counted with the support of numerous Warsaw residents. Irene Sandler smuggled 2,500 Jewish children out of the ghetto, giving them Christian identities and placing them with families and convents that took care of them. Ms. Sandler kept records of all the children's old and new identities in jars that she buried. Ms. Sandler was captured, interrogated, and tortured. She never revealed her network, and she was rescued by another well-known organized network in Warsaw. She continued her work, and after the war ended, she tried to reunite as many families as she could from the few survivors. Irene Sandler is one of the honored righteous persons by the Jack Benson Holocaust Memorial Museum in Jerusalem. She was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2007.
The easiest way to answer that for me is, as I was reading through the books, and I have to say there weren't that many books on heroes of genocide, which is sad. I think we could learn a lot more from the actions that one individual took to fight. But the point being, as I was reading, I recognized that children seem to be a theme where more people move in action to do something. And I was thinking, like I said, you know, they're children, just the concept that they're innocent, that the concept that they don't have any way to fight back, to defend themselves. But I have to say, all the theory went out the window when I look at the pictures. And these were not the pictures of the children dying, but these were all children that survived, children with their families. And my heart went out. I mean, I'm a mother, and I think anybody that could, you see them and they could be your children. And I think that's one of those points where you say a picture says 1,000 words. There is new life, I mean, it's innocence, and I think that has to do with it. You can portray a child and give them, I think that to your point, the dehumanization, you cannot, in my opinion, give a child a personality or a motive or a political enemy being imposed on a child. And I think people cannot make that connection with the children. And then you combine that with the sense of innocence, of everybody knowing what it is to be a child as a child, and to know children, and you combine with that, that's my take on why. And as far as being able to do it with adults, I think it goes back to that, not to have the labels, not to have the ability to portray somebody as something negative or as a danger of some kind of evil against who you are, but that there are people. And when I was doing the research, I have to recognize that at one point I was a little bit surprised and somewhat disappointed, because I thought there would be all these very deep reasons why people acted, and all of the accounts went back to the point they knew Jewish people. They knew it firsthand. So that's when it came to me, and when I said on the paper, it was very simple and clear that they couldn't dehumanize because they knew them as humans already, and there was no storyline that could change that. So that's, I think, we go to that.